Good afternoon, students. My name is Babura from the Department of English and Literary Studies, assigned to teach you GSP 1201/2201 use of English. The departments I'll be working with the departments of physics and electronics, mathematics, and Department of Statistics. And as you can see, the course use of English is a course that is aimed at giving you all the necessary skills you need, that is to do with the basic knowledge of the English language. And the essence of Bayero University bringing on board this course is for the university to give you a kind of background knowledge you need to have, or rather required for you to maybe go ahead with your learning activities. That is in terms of reading, writing, and especially when it comes to your learning processes. Because in this, you are level 1 or level 2, early stage, you need to maybe read, need to write, and then sometimes, even at the end of the study of your stay in this university, to, for example, write your projects at the end of your stay in the university. And all this been done in English language. That's why the university feels it is necessary for you to have this basic knowledge of English language, so that at least when you come to do your other writings and readings activities, you wouldn't be having a problem. Therefore, this course is going to engage you in aspect of to do with English language. But today we're going to start with the module 1. As you can see that the course covers 7 modules. That is, but for module 1, it is going to look at the vocabulary development. Therefore, today's lecture is going to center around vocabulary development. That is to say, how can one develops his existing vocabulary? That is from 20 to 50 words, from 50 to 100 words. How can you boost your vocabularies? What are the methods? What are the procedures? Therefore, class, this is going to be, or today's lectures is going to be centered around all these issues. You can see the module 1 covers vocabulary development, which has the main objective of focusing on the need for and ways of developing vocabularies, which are essential ingredients for spoken and written English or written communication. In the due course, some of the, or rather the following courses, the following items is going to be discussed. That is to say, denotation and connotation, registers and jargons, phrasal verbs and idioms. These are some of the things that the module is going to concentrate on. Therefore, we're going to look at these aspects as one of the things or basics that form the aspect of module 1. As I was saying, class, you can see there are different, that is when we're going to talk about the issue of meaning. There are different ways of understanding words' meaning. That is to say, one can consult the dictionary and other sources of meaning, such as context, such as the origin of words, and among others. But while looking up, or rather looking for the meaning of a word in the process of learning, or rather English language, one is advised to use, or rather to take a dictionary as his last option, because dictionary usually delays our understanding and our reading processes. But using the dictionary at the last resort, or at the last option, when all the other avenues fail, will be the best option. One may also consult dictionary to confirm an already understood word meaning in order to get more information about the specific word. Different ways of understanding word meaning include, for example, the following. One, that is the first way of understanding the meaning of words, can be through origin of a word, etymology. When we talk about origin or etymology, we are referring, or rather, we are going back to the where the words originate from or originated from. For example, class, you can see some English words originated from other languages such as Latin, French, Portuguese, and Greek. This knowledge of where the words originated from usually cancels every possibility of assigning meaning to the root or stem or based on a particular or familiar English word. Example, for example, when you take the word manipulate, it's a Latin originated from, or a word that originated from Latin. The initial letters man, that is from the word manipulated, has nothing to do with gender or sex. Therefore, class, the word manipulate is from the Latin word manipulus, that is to mean handful in English, from the word manus, that is hand, to mean skillful, that is skillful handling of objects in English language. Therefore, class, origin of a word, or rather its etymology, can help us understand the meaning of the word. That's one of the steps of understanding the meaning of an individual word in English language. Then, secondly, also, can look at the sound or onomatopoeic words in understanding the meaning of a particular word. Here we are trying to say there are some words in English language that we use the way they are pronounced to usually assign meaning to them. There are words that usually has a relationship between the word spelling and what it represents in the language. For example, class, when you take some words and their meaning, such as whisper, such as Rosalind, such as whistling, such as TikTok, all these words, as you can see, the sound of the words usually, or the pronunciation of the words, actually portrays the meaning of the word and, or rather, the meaning they represent. Therefore, class, sound or onomatopoeic words usually also is one of the steps or other ways of understanding the meaning of the word. Third stage of also that can help us assign or rather understand the meaning of the word can also be through the use of root or base form of a word. By root or base form of the word, we are referring to maybe the meaning of a word by understanding the meaning of the root or the base of the word. A root, when we say root here, class, we mean the basic word to which affixes can be attached. It is called root because it forms the basis of a new word and cannot be broken down. Examples: act is a word and a root word as well. For example, the suffix IVE can be attached to it to form a new word that is active. Therefore, a base, on the other hand, is a word which gives basis for the formation of a new word. It functions sometimes as a root, but it's distinct because the base can be further broken down into some kind of pieces. For example, act is a root of active, and then IVE as an affix, while active is a base for what? Activity. That is, here, when you look at the root or the base form of the word, sometimes that usually assists us or rather help the reader to understand where the meaning of that particular word goes to. That is why we said root or base form of a word also sometimes help us in knowing or rather understanding the meaning of a given word in English. The next stage also that can help us understand the meaning or rather assign meaning to a particular word or knowing their meaning is through the loan words. When we say loan words, class, we mean, in no language can survive without borrowing some words from one language or the other. Therefore, English also cannot be an exception. There are words that are borrowed from other languages and are used in the new language without changing the form of that particular words. For example, class, when you take the word coup d'etat, the word is borrowed from what? From French. Let's say we take the word safari or safari, it is borrowed from Arabic, and the meaning still in English remains as it is in the Arabic language. When you take also the word anonymous, it is borrowed from what? From Greek. When you take the word lute, it is borrowed from which language? Hindi. And maybe cartoon from Italian, among others. Therefore, class, knowing the origin, or rather the words are loan words or the original words, can also help us in determining the meaning of a word or in understanding the meaning of a given word in English language. Therefore, that's why we said loan words, or rather knowing whether the words are loan words or not, can help us understand the meaning of words or what the meaning represents in our use of language. Or the number 5 step of understanding, or rather knowing the meaning of a given word in English, is through knowing the grammatical category, or rather the grammatical category of a word. When we say grammatical category class here, we mean the word classes. You know, when we say word classes, we are referring to classifications of words into classes, such as maybe noun, verb, adjective, among others. So these are what we call grammatical category. Therefore, knowing the word class of our words help us to understand the meaning of a given word. For instance, class, knowing that a given word is an action word, that is verb, and not a noun, usually help us to understand the meaning of a word as a verb. Therefore, if a word is a noun, that means it is a naming word, you can understand the meaning. If it is an adverb or any other classification, this kind of knowledge of the grammatical category of a word also is one of the steps one follows to understand the meaning of a given word, either in a sentence or in writing or in whatever language the words belong to. Number 6, or rather point number 6 that one usually look at in assigning a meaning of a word is what we call context. That is, context is number 6 level. When we look at context class, we are referring to the environment in which a word is used. The environment where the words appear usually help us to understand the meaning of the particular word, because you can have a single word that can appear in one context as a noun, and then in another context it can be above. For example, the meaning of a particular word cannot be judged outside the context of where the words appeared. If that is been done, in some instances, there is every tendency we may assign the wrong meaning of a word to a particular word. That's why we sometimes advise the language users to always try and assign meaning of a word using the environment in which a word is used or it appears. The setting where the word is used, such as in an office, in a bar, for example, class, there are words that is the word that surround a particular word, that is before and after. The setting where the word is used, maybe like as I said earlier, in the office, in the bar, or in the classroom, etc., usually help us to understand what the meaning represents. For example, let's take the word treatment. The word treatment. Treatment can have different meaning based on the context or the environment. For example, class, it can be an attitude towards a person. That is, thinking of how you treat a slave, a guest, or a friend or customer. The second meaning can be the action of a nurse or doctor to a patient in a hospital. Somebody going to hospital can be treated or can have his treatment by the doctor or by the nurse. This is the second meaning. It can also mean purifying water. Sometimes we treat our water before we take it. That is water treatment. That is another meaning where the term or the word treatment can be represented or can mean. Therefore, class, by these examples, we can understand that yes, the word treatment can have different meaning depending on the context where the word appears. Therefore, context is a very important thing when it comes to assigning meaning to a word or understanding the meaning of the word. Then number 7. Number 7 thing that helps us to understand the meaning of a particular word is through intuition. Intuition. When we say intuition, class, we mean there is human beings are born with the natural ability, with an inbuilt ability in them to speak their mother tongue. Therefore, that God-given intuition, God-given blessing to an individual is what we refer to as the person's ability to speak, to understand his knowledge very well. Therefore, a native speaker of a language has the intuitive or innate knowledge of his language. That is, you all have the innate knowledge of your language. If you are Hausa, you have that intuition of Hausa language. If you are English, you have that intuition of English language. If you are Yoruba, you have that intuition of what? Yoruba language. Similarly, class, a competent user of a language has an intuitive knowledge of the language as well. Therefore, you don't have to be a native speaker for you to have the intuition. No. As a second language learner who specializes or who is competent in a given language can also have what? Intuition. Or can also rate it as somebody who is intuitively blessed with a particular knowledge of the language. Therefore, class, this intuition is achieved through extensive reading and rich exposure to the second language. Like myself, I'm not an English speaker, but maybe through having extensive reading or through a wide reading and rich exposure I have for the language, I can attain the level of what? Intuition. That is 6. Therefore, lastly, class, as the level of maybe assigning meaning to a particular word or let's say expression in the language, one can use dictionary as number 8, that is as the last option or as the last resort. This is the last resort to understanding the meaning of a word, that is dictionary. It will also serve as a reference material to affirm or let's say confer or get a further understanding of a given word, because dictionary goes beyond defining a particular word or teaching somebody a vocabulary or meaning. It gives other information about the word, such as maybe how the words are pronounced. That is, pronunciation, the correct pronunciation of the word is usually found in the dictionary. That is, you can see a kind of transcription in a bracket-like structure where the exact or the correct pronunciation of a word is given. And apart from given the right pronunciation of the word, dictionary also gives what? Word classes. That is where, or rather, which class does that particular word belongs to. Maybe is it a noun, is it a verb, is it, so all this is usually given also by the dictionary. Another thing is also what? The style. Because you know, in the language there are styles. That is, a style can be formal and informal. Sometimes dictionary tells us whether a particular word has a style, or rather a formal style or an informal style, whether the word is archaic, whether it is derogatory, among others. And also dictionary provides the relationship of a word with other words in the usage. For example, sometimes you can see how words appear in a sentences. That is, maybe you may know the meaning of a particular word, but knowing how to apply or rather use the word in sentences or in writing or in speech may be very difficult. Therefore, dictionary provides all these kind of issues. That is why we said one has to use dictionary as the last resort. That is the point I'm trying to. Then the next thing or the next level that one is supposed to look at in understanding the meaning of the word is to consider two kinds of meaning we have in the language. That is, each and every language class has two type of meanings. That is, we have denotation and connotation. A meaning can either be in form of denotative meaning or in form of what? Connotative meaning. Here, class, we're trying to say meaning can be actual or literal. When we say actual, class, we are referring to what? Denotation. When we say literal, we are referring to what? Connotation. Where the item which the word represents can be identified in the world, this meaning or this type of word meaning is called what? Denotation. Because each and every word represents a single or rather many objects in the real world. For example, when you take the word pencil, the pencil or the word dog, it has something it represents in the real life. Therefore, class, that original meaning, that dictionary meaning is what we refer to as what? Denotative meaning. But in the case where we use some meanings that cannot be found in the dictionary, that is not original, that is not actual meaning of a particular word, that particular meaning we are about to get is what we call connotative meaning, or the secondary meaning, or the assigned meaning. Therefore, class, in every language we have two kinds of meanings. We have denotative meaning, which is the original meaning of a word, which is the actual meaning, which is the meaning of the word we use in our everyday discussions, and also we have what we call connotation, that is to say, it is a secondary meaning, it is the literal meaning. It is what we call assigned meaning or figurative meaning, so to say. Therefore, class, the meaning that everybody can see, can understand, can perceive is what we call what? Denotation. And the meaning we usually assign to a particular words that is secondary to that words is what we call what? The word connotation. For example, class, when you take the word woman, woman is in a real sense is what? Is adult female human being. This meaning is what? Is called denotation or denotative meaning. While if you say woman, it means somebody who is weak, somebody who is beautiful, somebody who is, let's say, sympathetic. This kind of meaning cannot be found in the dictionary. Rather, it is the meaning that is been assigned to that particular word by the society. It is an extension of meaning given to a particular word. So this is what we mean by the word denotation and the term connotation. As you can see on your screen, you can read through the content, and I'm sure you can understand the point I'm trying to make here. In understanding the two concepts of denotation and connotation, we can highlight the similarities and also maybe differences. You can see both denotative meaning and connotative meaning are types of meaning available to every language users. Whether in English, whether in Hausa, in whatever language, there are this kind of two meanings. You may choose to use the connotative meaning, or you may choose to use the denotative meaning. Therefore, this is available in almost every languages. That is one. Two, the denotative meaning identifies items in the world. That is the real world. That is when we say donkey, we are referring to an animal with 4 legs, usually used for carrying loads among others, or and other descriptions. While connotative meaning of donkey is a sense of relation of the denotative meaning. That is to say, if somebody, or rather, if somebody or a man is referred to as donkey, he can easily be somebody who is not brilliant, somebody who is workaholic in nature, while, or rather, so all these kind of meanings can be found in all other languages. That is number 2. Number 3, we can talk about the denotative meaning as a stable relationship. For example, car remains that same item in real life which has 4 wheels and we drive to our various destinations. While if you refer to as connotative meaning of a car, it is an unstable relationship. For example, you can say maybe if you call somebody a dog, how can somebody who is human be a dog? Tomorrow he can be something else also. Therefore, the meaning here is unstable, while that of the denotative meaning is always stable. It is not changing. When you say dog, it always means dog. When you say car, it always means a vehicle, or rather something that we can see in real life that has 4 wheels. But if you call somebody a dog there, the meaning there is temporal, it's temporary. You cannot see him as a dog always. Therefore, these two things cannot be confirmed in the real sense. And number 4 class, we can also say that the denotative meaning, that is the denotation or the denotative meaning, is concrete. That is something that you can see, something that you can touch, something that you can sense in the real life. Therefore, that is why we said it is what? It is concrete. While connotative meaning is what? Is abstract. Because there is no one-to-one relationship between the word dog and a human, right? The meaning there is abstract. It can be sleeved away, right? Therefore, the relationship between an object and what it represents is what? Is concrete. But if you are talking about the connotative meaning, you are referring to the abstract nature of meaning. In essence, class, when we talk about denotation, it's something that we can see, we can feel, we can touch, we can identify in the real world. Whereas in connotation, meaning of items cannot be seen, cannot be touched, cannot be identified. Instead, we extend the denotative meaning to express our ideas, experiences, events, or emotions in some other ways. Number 5 class, still with the meaning relationship, that is to do with the denotation. We are trying to talk about in denotative meaning, A word may denote on, or rather an item or entity with different shades of meaning. Example, let's say the word teacher has different shades of meaning, such as can be a teacher, can be a tutor, can be a facilitator, and or can be a lecturer. Whereas in connotation class, we associate meaning with other abstract nature, that is either behavior, event, idea, or what? Feeling, which has similar characteristics. Example, a woman versus gentle. Here, when we say woman, we mean what? An individual, or rather a female adult human being, right? But it can also be referred to as gentle in talking about connotative meaning. Let's say when we talk about pig, pig is an animal, but which is what? Dirty. Therefore, class, we use the quality of that animal to mean the animal, right? Maybe pig versus what? Dirty. And also you can talk about rat and thief. The word thief is somebody who steals other people's property without their consent, right? Therefore, rat also do the same. Therefore, we borrow the quality of a rat to apply to the word thief also. When you take the word all versus witchcraft, usually in our cultures, especially in Hausa culture, or in the culture of northern Nigeria, when you see an all, it represents what? Witchcraft. But in other ideologies, such as in the West, the word all usually represents what? Wisdom. In Western philosophy, it has wisdom. It represents wisdom. That is the Western association of the word. Therefore, class, it is also important to note that words which has different shades of meaning also bring about the incidence of synonymy in language. That is to say, when we talk about the synonymy, you can have a word that can have different other meanings. For example, the word sour to do with the orange, and rancid to do with butter, for example. Blonde, it has to do with the hair. Brown can be the dress. Maybe deaf can be related, or rather related to gutter, and let's say profound be related to what? Wound. Bright, maybe with a student, and colorful with what? Attire. Let's say statement, usually for retired politicians who are not what? Termed corrupt. That is the statesman. You can have somebody who is a statesman to represent you, a retired politician who is not what? Termed as corrupt. And a politician to represent somebody who is corrupt and active in politics. Therefore, we can also look at the term lecturer to represent what? Somebody in tertiary institutions, or somebody who teaches in what? Tertiary institutions. And teacher, a person who teaches in where? Primary and secondary schools. Therefore, this kind of meanings also is one of the things that connotative meaning can also give birth to synonyms as the nature of. Also, another thing is that literary writings are known for what? Their profuse use of connotative meaning, as seen in the literary devices such as metaphor, irony, satire, imagery, etc. Example class, bad, that is bad, B-A-T, connotes blindness. You can see class, the major thing that or that can make literary works unique in nature is what? Is the use of connotative language, because of the presence of devices such as metaphor, irony, satire, imagery, etc. And also class, a connotation carries negative and positive meanings. Some synonyms differ in either the negative or positive implication of the word. Let's say a word may be positive or a negative, depending on the context they appear. For example, let's take the word childlike. Childlike is positive to young children, but negative to what? To adults, and maybe useful. When you take the word statesman, it's positive, let's say, and but to politician, negative. Maybe statesman is positive, but politician is negative based on cultural perception. The word liberty is positive to Americans, and freedom is also positive to South Africans, but negative to what? Americans. Therefore, class, depending on the culture or the setting of an individual, that is why we said the connotation or connotative meaning of a word can either be positive or negative, depending on how the individual or how the society perceive a particular word. That is one thing. Then the next item class on this module we're going to talk about is to do with register and jargons. Register and jargons. You can see, class, jargons have two different meanings. That is, let's start by taking the register. When we talk about register, register, class, refers to the technical vocabulary of a profession, trade, or activity. Each and every profession in this life has a particular words they use to communicate either amongst themselves or to communicate their skills. That is to say, let's say law, medicine, linguistics, tourism, football, among others. This professionalism or these professions use language as what we call registers. It is necessary and useful for members of the professional group or a profession to use the specialized vocabulary in their field. That is what we call registers, as a sign of expertise in their profession. If, as a doctor, you cannot use the medical register, then there is a problem with your what? With your doctorship. Maybe as a lawyer, you cannot use the legal register. Also, there's a problem. Therefore, for you to have a fully member or a full member of a profession, you have to use the particular register that belongs to that particular profession. Registers, class, as you know, or as I made mention earlier, like a professional code, or it's like a professional code, thus excluding non-members from their conversations. It makes communication specific. Maybe if you don't belong to that particular profession, you may be sidelined, you may be counted out, you may be opted out of that discussion. Precisely, class, it is also, register also promotes what? Economy in communication. If somebody speaks in his profession, there is tendency for him economizing words. Instead of him to go ahead making explanations and other things, he will end up what? Using or rather economizing words. Maybe he may use little to say more. Register is a professional badge of identification for members who feels on air of authority, prestige, and higher status when using register in communication. Okay, class, as I was saying, as I was talking about the concept of registers and jargons, we're going to look at some of the examples of registers. You see, some professions and the registers can be termed as follows. For example, or rather, these are the following examples. When you take law, that is, you can find some concepts or some words or some registers used as follows. For example, the word plaintiff, the word prosecutor, the word defendant, the word appellant, the word accused, the word petitioner. So petitioner here, you can see all these words mentioned as examples belong to the what we call legal register. That is the law profession. Outside law, you hardly get these words. They may be found. They may be found find somewhere, but this is the place where they are dominantly used or applied. That is the first example. When you take also the linguistics register or the register or the linguistics as a register, you can have some uses of words such as phoneme, such as allophone, such as plosives, such as rounded vowel, such as allomorph, such as syllables, such as consonants, such as syntax, such as phonetics. All these are some of the words or are some of the registers that belong to what? Linguistics as a profession. That is another thing. Then when we go back also to the next register, which is political register, that is in politics, you can have expressions such as what? Such as controversy, such as maybe eloquence, such as maybe declaration, such as candidate, strategy, maybe adverse, jubilant, gracious, or charisma. All these terms are usually attached to what? To the political register. As I told you, class, they can be found, or rather they can be found somewhere, but not as dominant as they appear in the register of politics or in the political register. We can also look at the religion. In religion class, you can heard of maybe issues such as blasphemy, such as Buddhism, such as maybe atheism, such as evangelical, such as Islam, such as Christianity, among others. All these are some of the elements or words or registers or terms that are used in religious register. That is, in religion, these are the dominant words used as a particular register. Another thing, class, also is when you look at the medical register, that is in medicine, you can heard of maybe expressions such as acute, such as abscess, such as autopsy, such as diagnosis, such as edema, such as fracture, such as, let's say, treatment, among others. Therefore, class, these are some of the few examples that one can find out when it comes to the profession and the registers or under their terms or the dominant terms used in a particular or given profession. And still, class, register and jargons, we're going to look now at the term jargon. You see, specifically, class, specifically when we say jargon, we are referring to an obscure and pretentious use of language. Obscure and pretentious use of language is referred to as what we call jargon. It is marked by a roundabout way of what? Expression. For example, instead of you to say A, then you just be going round and round and round, and then you end up coming to what we call A. Therefore, class, jargon entails the use of long and pompous words which are often unnecessary and inappropriate to do an expression or to make an expression. The major aim of the speaker is to what? Is to impress the audience. Here, communication suffers because words are barriers to what? Understanding. If the language user tried or rather attempts to be pompous or to be impressive in his dealings, then he may end up using jargons, and at the end of the day, there might be, or there is every likelihood one can have a communication gap. Because, as I told you, class, words are barriers to understanding. When you don't use the right words in your expressions or in your dealings, you may end up misunderstood, or there is likely to have miscommunication at the end of the discussions. That is why we usually, in some instances, advise students to avoid jargons because they may what? They may sideline or rather select some members that may be aimed at communicating too. Let me ask a little question, class, to test an expression is a jargon or not. Can it be said in simple words without impeding the speaker's intent? If the answer is yes, it is a jargon. If the answer is no, it is what? A register. Therefore, if an expression can be said in the simple words without impeding the speaker's intent or intention, here we said the answer is what? If the answer is yes, then it is what? A jargon. If the answer is no, it is what? A register. For example, class, Jellyfish circumnavigates as an expression. This is a jargon because one can simply say cars move in a just very simple expression. But if you say jellyfish circumnavigates, some people will be dumbfounded. What does that mean? So this is an example of maybe a jargon. The next example is the word contains an allomorph. The word contains an allomorph. This is a register because it cannot be said in a better language without a roundabout use of words. Because allomorph is a particular expression that belongs to a profession, that is linguistics. If anybody that belongs to linguistics register or a profession When he see allomorphs, he will understand what you are trying to say. And there is no better way to say it than this one. So by this we can understand better what we mean register and O jargon. So we also move to what we call as a next item, what we call phrasal verb. Phrasal verb. Class, when we say a phrasal verb, is a group of words that which consist of what? A verb and what? Other particles. Each and every phrasal verb must contain a verb and what? A particle. Therefore, where the particles are either preposition or what? Adverb. So, phrasal verb contain a verb as the head word and then a preposition or an adverb as what? As a particle. Or sometimes you can have both the preposition and what? The adverb as the particle. Thus, phrasal verb can have the following maybe structure. That is verb, either verb plus particle, such as in what? Call off, or let's say verb plus an adverb, such as maybe add up, or verb plus adverb plus preposition, as in catch up with. Catch up with. There is a corresponding lexical verb for every phrasal verb, which means the same as the phrasal verb. For example, class, sometimes when we say a phrasal verb, we can have a single term or a lexical verb that can stand in place of that particular phrasal verb. For example, class, when we talk about look for, it means what? We can have search to stand in for that phrasal verb. When we say put off, we can mean what? Extinguish. When we say object to, we mean refuse or reject. That is object to. That is refuse or reject. Bring up means what? Raise. Bring up, raise. Therefore, phrasal verbs class are subdivided into separable phrasal verbs and non-separable phrasal verbs. Separable phrasal verbs are phrasal verbs that can allow some other objects or some other words to be inserted in between the verb and the particle. That is, for example, bring up can be bring your child up. Therefore, you can see your child comes in between bring and up. Therefore, this is what? Example of a separable phrasal verb. Or let's say call off versus call the strike off. Call the strike off, you can see the strike comes in between call and off. Therefore, this one is also what? A separable phrasal verb. That is, something can be allowed to come in between the verb and the particle. We can also have put off as a phrasal verb. Put off versus put the fire off. That is, the fire comes in between what? Put and off. Therefore, we can see these kind of examples are the examples of what we call separable phrasal verbs. We also have what we call non-separable phrasal verbs. They are the phrasal verbs that what? Cannot take a word inserted or cannot allow a word to be inserted between the verb and the particle. If that is done, so the expression is going to be meaningless. For example, words such as look for, such as hold on, such as stop by, such as hang out, such as sit up, all these are examples of what inseparable phrasal verbs. Now, furthermore, phrasal verbs are divided into literal and non-literal phrasal verbs. When we talk about the literal phrasal verbs, they are just the name, or rather, the name implies they denote a literal meaning which are not taken idiomatically, while non-literal phrasal verbs take literal or idiomatic meanings. Example class, when we say look up or look down, can take a literal meaning which denotes upward and downward gaze, for example. But the phrasal verb look down can take a non-literal meaning, that is what? That is mean disrespectful or disrespect. That is, when you look down upon someone, it means you are what? You are disrespecting him. So this meaning sounds idiomatic and sound not literal. Other examples include maybe hang on to means what? Pasabe. Or sit up means what? To pay attention. So these are the examples of the phrasal verbs one can offer. Now, The next item also to look at, class, is what we call an idiom. Idiom is a group of words whose meaning cannot be predicted by the sequence of words in the structure. That is, when we talk about idiom, the meaning of an idiom cannot be deduced, cannot be understood from the individual words that make up the sentence or the expression. That's why we mean by an idiom. Because for you to get or to understand the meaning of an idiom, you must know the meaning already. But if it is for the individual words that made it up, then you hardly understand what the meaning of an idiom stands to represent. This means that idioms are what? Are opaque in nature. This group of words usually are fossilized. When we say fossilized, class, we mean they are archaic and incapable of what? Change. They are not changing. They are not dynamic. They are archaic over time to form a unit of meaning. Idioms, therefore, class, involves a kind of what? Collocation. That is, the company a word keeps, where a word in an idiomatic phrase cannot be what? Substituted with another word. For example, like in a normal sentence, you can remove a particular word and put another one, and it still can make sense. Or cannot take any alteration. That is, maybe past tense or present tense or whatever, or maybe plural form. For example, class, let's take example of he kicks the bucket. You cannot have you cannot say he played the bucket. When you change that particular verb, the meaning can completely be changed. That is another thing. You cannot say also he jacked the basket, right? Here, if you use any of these two examples given, then you may end up having something different, but not what? Not an idiom. We have many examples of idioms, as you can see on your screens, such as maybe beat around the bush, that is to avoid, or maybe talking about what is unimportant. Get your act together means get organized and do things effectively. Maybe hit the sack means what? Go to slave. Your gaze is as good as mine. That is, it means what? I do not know. Good things come to those who wait. To mean what? To have patience. Back against the wall, as an idiom, means stuck in a difficult circumstance with no escape. You can also have off in arms, means being grumpy or angry about what? About something. You can also have maybe scrap the barrel to mean making the most of the worst situation or things because you can't do anything about it. Burn your boats or bridges. Here means doing something that makes it impossible to go back to the original state. Or maybe break fresh or new ground. That means doing something that has never been done. So we can see as many examples as possible, as you can see on the screen. You can have as many examples as one can offer. Therefore, class, these are some of the examples given. And class, as I was saying, as you have seen the previous examples of idioms, I'm sure you can be able to understand what idioms stands to represent. Also, you can see that idioms are semantically like a single word, but do not function like a word. It does not change or take grammatical features like noun, words, take plural forms. You see, the issue we want to put forward here is that idioms doesn't accept changes, as in maybe from singular to plural, or from plural to singular, or from noun to verb, or from past to present. No. The issue is the idioms usually remain static and doesn't welcome any change. That is, doesn't take any tense forms, such as maybe you want to make maybe cook to cooked, maybe car to cars, or any other thing. No. And also, class, the issue to also exemplify this our discussion is to say that you can have an idiom that is says to spill the beans. You cannot make it to spill the bean, that is to singularize the idiom. The idiom doesn't accept all these changes. That's why we said idioms are semantically like a single word, but do not function like a word. Because word can take plural, can take singular. That's why we said it's like a word, but in the essence that it doesn't welcome changes or inflections or whatever. That's why we said it is like a word, but it doesn't function like a word. Therefore, in trying to give or rather to assign any change to an idiom, it will end up making it an invalid one. Therefore, idioms class do not take any comparisons or passivizations. For example, uh, um, like in the essence, or rather in the case of he kicked the bucket, you cannot change it to maybe the bucket was kicked. That is maybe in terms of passivization, or you want to passify the sentence. Idioms always remain as it is. That's why we are emphasizing on that idioms, for you to assign a meaning to any idiom, you shouldn't pay attention to the individual word that made it up, no, but rather is something that is archaic, that is not dynamic, that always remain the same. Therefore, class, idiom is a unique, as made mention earlier, is an opaque expression that is used in many dealings with the language or other linguistic aspects. Therefore, this is rather a little things to say about idiom. And with these little discussions on Module 2, I'm sure this brings us to the end of this lecture on the model of vocabulary development. That is Module 1. We should now expect 6 more modules to cover the contents of the course. And I'm sure this will follow in due course. Class, I remain the Mr. Babura. Thank you very much for all your attention. Thank you very much. I'm very much grateful. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuhu. Assalamu alaikum.